They always saw my brother as the hero and me as the afterthought. But one night changed everything, and suddenly, I was the one holding the family's future in my hands. You ever walk into your own childhood home and feel like a stranger at your own dinner table? That was my life. Every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday night spaghetti dinner with garlic bread and forced smiles. From as far back as I can remember, my older brother, Zach, was the star. Not just the golden child. He was the whole damn sun. And me? I was the flickering porch light nobody bothered to fix. Zach was 2 years older, stronger, louder, and somehow always the hero in every story my parents told. He scored 3 goals in a soccer game once, and my mom brought cupcakes to his entire team. I got straight A's that same week. They said, "Good job," in passing while asking me to take the trash out. I remember 3rd grade, when I got 1st place in the regional spelling bee. Huge deal for me. I practiced for weeks. On the drive home, I held the little gold medal in my hand, beaming. We got back to the house, and my dad barely looked up from the TV. But when Zach showed him a shaky video he filmed of his new kickflip trick on his skateboard, my dad clapped. "Now that's impressive," he said. The kickflip video got shown to family at Thanksgiving. My medal never made it out of the drawer. At first, I told myself it did not matter. I figured, maybe Zach just was more likable. He had that big laugh, always had a crowd around him. Teachers loved him. Coaches loved him. Girls adored him. My parents? They practically built a shrine in the hallway with all his ribbons and trophies. The only time my name made it onto that wall was when they accidentally stuck a photo of both of us from some school play. My face was half cut off. I learned early on how to disappear without anyone noticing. It became my specialty. Zach got the praise. I got the silence. But I stayed quiet. I smiled when I was supposed to. I helped when asked. I convinced myself being in the background was just my place. Some people lead, some people follow, and some people just blend into the wallpaper and hope they do not get blamed when something breaks. I buried the resentment so deep, it stopped feeling like anger and just became this dull ache. Like a bruise you forget is there until someone pokes it. But here is the thing. When someone spends their whole life being ignored, being underestimated, they get used to watching. They learn things. They see what others miss. And when the family finally faced a crisis, a real one, not just Zach forgetting an anniversary or screwing up his taxes, it was not him they needed. He froze. Everyone turned to the wrong hero. And for once, all eyes landed on me. They just did not know yet that I was the one who could save them, or destroy them. Growing up in Zach's shadow meant I got real good at 2 things, staying quiet and staying ready. See, when you are invisible, people let their guard down around you. They say things like you are not even there. They underestimate what you know, what you hear, and what you can do. So while my parents were busy polishing Zach's trophies, and he was busy soaking up their pride, I was doing something else. I was learning. I learned how to fix things without asking for help. How to stay calm when everyone else panicked. How to spot the cracks in people's masks before they broke wide open. By high school, Zach was already a local legend. Varsity football, prom king, full ride to a big-name school before he even finished junior year. Me? I was the kid who tutored the ones who were struggling to stay eligible to play, including Zach, when he bombed Algebra 2 and needed my help to keep his scholarship. Not that anyone thanked me. Zach told them he figured it out. I just nodded and went back to studying in silence. But deep down, I was building something no one saw. While Zach partied and coasted on charm, I taught myself code. I got into computers. Not the fun, flashy kind. The gritty, complicated stuff. By graduation, I had already built a small security app that ended up getting picked up by a niche tech company for a modest payout. I never told my family. Not even when the check cleared. I bought a used car and told them it was a graduation gift from a family friend. Because honestly, I was done trying to impress them. Fast forward a few years. Zach got married to some social media influencer type named Alina. Of course, the wedding was massive. My parents took out a second mortgage to help pay for it. I was told I could come if I helped with the DJ playlist and stayed out of the photos. Real quote. And I did. Because that was my role. The background guy. Until last year. It started with a late-night call from my dad. That alone was weird. He never called unless it was a group thing. His voice was low. Panicked. "It's Zach. Something's wrong." He told me Zach had gotten into a situation. Would not say what exactly. Just that they needed me to come to the house the next day. "Family meeting," he said. like that had ever meant anything before. When I showed up, the air was thick. My mom was pacing. Zach was pale. Alina was red-eyed and sniffling into her phone. My dad sat at the table like he was about to deliver a sermon, hands folded, face grim. And then they told me. Zach had been hacked. Not just his socials. Not just his bank. His business. Apparently, he and a few of his buddies had been running some startup venture. Real estate tech. Something flashy and risky. And someone had gotten into their systems, drained funds, locked files, and left behind a digital mess that could get them sued, maybe even investigated. They were terrified. And for the first time in my life, every single person in that room turned to me. Not for chores, not for tutoring, not for silence. They needed me to fix it. And that was when the first real shift happened, because I already knew who had hacked him. When my dad said, "We need your help," it was like hearing a foreign language from a familiar voice. He had never asked me for anything. Not like that. Not with urgency. Not like I mattered. Zach sat there with his head in his hands, saying things like, "They wiped everything. We can't access any of the accounts. They even locked us out of our own pitch deck." Alina kept pacing, holding her phone like she was waiting for a miracle text. My mom kept muttering about how this was an attack on our family. But the part that stuck with me? They never once asked how I could help. They just assumed I had nothing going on. That I would drop everything because Zach needed me. What they did not know was that I had already seen the hack. 2 days earlier, I had been scrolling through an obscure cybersecurity subreddit when someone posted a screenshot of a breach involving a VC-funded real estate baby app. That is what they called it. Curious, I followed the thread. Someone had left digital breadcrumbs, and out of habit, I followed them. I had no idea it was Zach's company until I saw one name in the metadata. Z. Murphy. I felt my blood freeze for a second. So I dug deeper. I found everything. The breach had been done by someone good. Really good, but not perfect. They had left behind a few clues, enough for me to figure out where the entry point was. A backdoor API flaw. Basic stuff if you knew what to look for. Whoever did this had used something built into the system itself, probably from a contractor or a short-term hire, which meant this was not random. It was personal. So when they told me about the breach that night, and all their desperate eyes turned to me for a solution, I already knew 2 things. 1, the damage was worse than they even realized. 2, the hacker was someone they knew. I told them I would take a look, but I needed full access. Laptops, server credentials, account passwords, everything. My dad hesitated. Zach looked offended. But they had no other choice. Zach handed me a flash drive like it was a sword. I spent the next 12 hours locked in my old childhood room. Same posters on the wall, same dusty desk, like no time had passed. Except now I was not the ignored kid anymore. I was the one holding the keys. And somewhere around hour 5, I found the message. Buried deep in the back end, written in obfuscated code, was a line of text that hit me like a gut punch. Next time, vet your investors better. L. I blinked at the screen. My hands froze over the keyboard. There was only one person I knew who signed things that way. My ex-best friend, Liam. The same guy Zach had stolen a job from. The same guy Zach had humiliated at a networking event 3 years ago. Liam, the only person who ever believed I was more than just Zach's brother. And now, he had declared digital war. But there was one thing Liam did not know. He had left a crack in his trail. A weakness I could exploit. And if I followed it, I could end this whole mess. Or, I could do something else entirely. I stared at the screen for a long time. Liam had done it. He had pulled off something most hackers only fantasized about. Crippled a startup, buried it under its own digital rubble, and left behind a signature just subtle enough to slip past amateurs. But not past me. And that was the problem. Because I could trace him. I should trace him. But part of me hesitated. Not because I did not know how. No, technically it was easy. I had already mapped out the breach path, traced the IP diversions, found the alias wallet used to filter the siphoned funds. I could walk it all back and have Liam's full digital fingerprint in about 20 minutes if I really wanted to. What I was stuck on was why I was hesitating. Zach had stolen a job from Liam years ago, straight up lied about his own qualifications to get hired at a mid-sized fintech company Liam had spent months prepping for. He even used some of my project code to fake a portfolio. When Liam found out and confronted him, Zach spun it like Liam was just jealous and too soft for the real world. Liam got blacklisted in that city, had to move halfway across the country. And my parents? They shrugged, said, "Sometimes the world rewards confidence." They called Liam unstable. So yeah, a big part of me was not mad at Liam for doing this. I was mad at myself for feeling torn. If I traced him and gave Zach the proof, I could save the company. Save Zach. Be the hero. But what would that really mean? It would mean helping the same brother who had walked all over Liam. And me, who never lifted a finger to acknowledge what I did for him behind the scenes. Who would go right back to being the golden child the second the smoke cleared. I leaned back in my chair, my childhood chair, the one with the broken wheel that always leaned left. My knees were jammed up against the desk drawer I used to hide candy in as a kid. Everything in that room felt like a time capsule, like I had never left. But I had left. I had built a life. A quiet one. A stable one. I had savings. Clients. I consulted for cybersecurity firms under an alias. No one at that table downstairs knew I was the reason a multi-million-dollar phishing scam got shut down last year. Because I never told them. They did not ask. They never asked. And now? Now they were waiting downstairs, pacing, sipping coffee they did not offer me, praying that I, the forgotten son, would swoop in and fix the mess their favorite had created. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could save them, or I could let them drown. I was still deciding when I heard it. Footsteps outside the door. A knock. My mother's voice, soft, uncertain. "Are you making progress?" I did not answer right away, because I had just found something new buried in the files, something even Zach did not know was there. A hidden folder. Encrypted. Marked with one word, severance. The word, severance, stared back at me from the screen like it was daring me to open it. Now, if you know anything about private servers and encrypted drives, you know this. People do not label something severance unless they are planning to cut ties. Hard and quiet. You name a folder like that when you want to keep it buried, just in case you ever need to end someone without saying a word. I cracked it open. It was locked behind 3 layers of encryption, which told me Zach had not put it there himself. Zach could barely remember his Netflix password, but someone close to the company did. Probably one of the co-founders. I bypassed the firewalls in about 10 minutes, heart pounding the entire time. Fingers cold on the keyboard. Inside, emails, contracts, screenshots, voice memos, even a few videos. And what they showed made my stomach drop. It was not just a breach. It was insurance. The kind you keep in case someone tries to screw you. Turns out, Zach's company had been bleeding money for months. Investors were pulling out. There were whispers about misuse of funds, inflated user data, maybe even a shell LLC that funneled capital through overseas accounts. And right at the center of it all, Zach, the golden child, the face of the company, the one they trusted to smile on stage and schmooze the board. But behind the scenes, Zach was preparing to jump ship. This severance folder was his parachute. A memo dated 3 weeks ago spelled it out. Zach had been secretly negotiating a deal to sell his shares to a competitor under the table, knowing the company was about to collapse. He was planning to bail, blame the breach, and let the rest burn while he walked away with clean hands and a 7-figure payout. I scrolled down and saw the killer line in an email draft. "Once the breach is confirmed and we freeze operations, we can move quickly. The family will assume I got blindsided. I'll handle my brother. I'll handle my brother." My chest tightened. So that was the plan. He thought I would clean up the mess, give them a name, restore access, and then vanish again into the background while he spun the narrative. And worst of all, my parents would believe him, just like always. They would see Zach as the victim. They would say I had done my part and give me one of those shallow thank you hugs while he collected sympathy and stock options. But not this time. I closed the folder, backed it up to a secure drive, slipped the flash drive into my pocket, shut the laptop. Then I sat in silence, letting it all soak in. Zach was not just the golden child. He was a liar, a coward, and a con artist. And now I had the proof. When I walked downstairs, they were all waiting for me. My dad looked up from his coffee like he had something important to say. My mom had that brittle smile, the one she used when she was trying to look calm, but was already halfway into a breakdown. Zach stood there, arms folded, eyes twitching with barely hidden panic. "You fix it?" he asked. I looked him dead in the eye, and for the first time in my life, I smiled first. Because I had the upper hand now. I walked down the stairs slowly, one hand in my pocket gripping the flash drive, the other on the banister like I was balancing on a cliff edge. For once, they were all quiet. No bickering, no side comments, Just eyes on me. It felt strange, like the air had changed. The same living room I had been ignored in for decades now felt like a stage. My dad cleared his throat. Well, he asked, voice all businesslike. Can you undo it? Zach stepped forward before I could answer. I told you he could do it, he said, flashing that grin he always used when he was trying to charm his way out of trouble. He's a whiz at this stuff. Always has been. It hit me how that sounded. Not a compliment, a setup. Like he was already rehearsing the story where he says, yeah, my brother fixed everything. But, and spins whatever comes next. I kept my face neutral. I found the breach, I said. I know exactly who did it. I also found something else. My mom blinked at me. Something else? She asked. Evidence, I said simply. Zach's grin twitched. Evidence of what? I did not answer right away. I wanted to watch him sweat. For once, I wanted him to feel that gnawing uncertainty I had grown up with. My dad leaned forward. Well, I could feel the room leaning toward me, like a tide. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and turned it in my fingers. This drive has everything, I said. The breach, the trail, and files you're going to want to see. Zach's voice cracked. What files? On you, I said. The color drained from his face. Alina stopped pacing and stared at him. What is he talking about? Zach shot me a look. That same look he used to give when we were kids, and he was about to push me under the bus, but needed me to play along. That unspoken command. But this time, I did not flinch. I set the flash drive on the table. If you want me to fix your little problem, we're going to do it my way. All of it. And before you ask, yes, I have backups. Encrypted. In 3 different locations. Zach opened his mouth, but no words came out. Alina's eyes narrowed. Zach? She asked again. My dad finally broke the silence. What's on that drive? I looked at him. Proof, I said, of who your son really is. Of what he planned to do. And just like that, the balance shifted. All my life, they had assumed I was the quiet one. The safe one. The invisible one. Now, I was the one holding the detonator. But I was not sure yet if I wanted to defuse it or let it go off. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The flash drive sat there between us like a tiny, glowing bomb. Zach's hands twitched. He tried to smile again, but it looked like a mask starting to crack. You're bluffing, he said, his voice higher than usual. You're just trying to scare everyone. I leaned back in the chair. Am I? Alina's eyes darted between us. Zach, what's on that drive? She demanded. He barked out a laugh that sounded more like a cough. Nothing. He's always been jealous. Mom and Dad know that. He's trying to make me look bad. My mom's face was pale. Is it true, Zach? She whispered. That was the first time in my life I had ever heard her question him. It was like watching a statue develop a crack right down the middle. Zach's nostrils flared. I don't have to explain myself. Yes, I said quietly. You do. I opened my laptop and typed a few keys. The big TV on the wall flickered on, showing an email from the severance folder. Zach's draft. The memo. The line about bailing with the money. Alina gasped like someone had punched her in the stomach. Oh my God. My dad's jaw clenched. Zachary, he said, voice low. Tell me this isn't real. Zach tried to lunge forward, maybe to pull the plug, but I had already mirrored the files to a secure server. Touch the laptop and everything goes public, I said evenly. He froze. It was surreal, watching him deflate. The same brother who had spent our whole lives strutting through rooms like he owned them now looked small. Alina backed away from him. You lied to me, she said, her voice breaking. My mom started crying softly. My dad kept staring at Zach like he was seeing him for the first time. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I can fix the breach, I said, my voice steady. I can clean the system, restore access, track down the stolen funds. But here's the thing, you're going to come clean. To the investors. To your wife. To them. Zach shook his head violently. They'll destroy me. You destroyed yourself, I said. My dad's eyes flicked to me. Why are you doing this? I met his stare. Because you always thought I was weak, I said. You thought I was nothing but background noise. But I'm the only reason you're not bankrupt right now. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. And then, unexpectedly, Zach dropped to his knees. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-style collapse. It was like his legs just gave out. He stared at the floor, breathing hard. What do you want? He asked, his voice hollow. That was the first time in my life he had ever asked me that question. I looked down at him, at the golden child stripped of all his shine, and realized the next words out of my mouth would decide everything. His future, mine, and the family's. I stood there, watching Zach kneel on the living room rug like a kid caught stealing lunch money. My mom was crying into her hands, my dad still frozen in disbelief, and Alina? She was already backing toward the door like she had just realized the man she married was a complete stranger. Zach's question still hung in the air. What do you want? Part of me wanted to scream. To unload years of silence, of invisibility, of being passed over. I wanted to tell them I wanted everything Zach ever had, and more. I wanted my place at the table, the apologies I never got, the damn fridge space that was always his for every crooked drawing or meaningless award. But I said none of that. Instead, I walked over and picked the flash drive up off the table, held it in my palm like it was nothing, like it was everything. And I said, I want you to live with the truth. Zach looked up, blinking. I'm not going to ruin you, I said. You're going to do it yourself. My dad started to speak, but I held up a hand. No more interruptions. You all made your choices. Every dinner you ignored me. Every holiday I got a gift card while Zach got a drone or a new guitar. Every moment you looked right through me and saw only him. I turned to my mother. You once told me I was being too sensitive when Zach took my college fund to pay for his internship trip to DC. Her face crumpled. And Dad, I said, you made me skip my own graduation so Zach could have the family weekend for his engagement announcement. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I looked down at Zach. You asked what I want. Here's what's going to happen. I listed it out, calm and direct. You're going to walk away from the company. Officially. Publicly. You're going to return whatever funds you try to stash, and you're going to tell your partners everything. You're going to give me full access to the backend and all data logs, without interference. And after that, you're going to sit down with every investor and tell them what really happened. Zach let out a soft, broken sound. They'll cut me off. I'll lose everything. You were willing to burn them all down, I said. Consider this your severance. Alina whispered, I'm filing for divorce. Nobody stopped her when she walked out the front door. I turned back to the TV, pulled up the last file, and hit delete. They all watched the screen fade to black. Zach just stared at the blank screen, defeated. But I was not done. I looked at my parents. And one more thing. I'm done pretending. I am not going to sit at the kids' table anymore while you all pretend Zach is the only one who matters. I paused. From now on, you want my help, you ask for it. You say please. You say thank you. Like I'm a grown man, not your errand boy. They both nodded, slowly, like people who had just woken up from a long, stupid dream. And for the first time ever, I walked out of that house first, head high, no need to look back. The next morning, the silence hit different. No buzzing phone, no guilt-tripping texts, no fake friendly calls from my mother pretending like nothing had happened. Just stillness. And coffee I made for myself, in a kitchen that finally felt like mine. I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the laptop. The flash drive sat next to it, untouched, like a sleeping animal I had already tamed. And then the messages started rolling in, not from family, from the investors. One of them had been looped into the recovery effort. I had set up secure access for them the night before. He emailed me personally. Subject line: You're the only reason we still have a company. He offered me a retainer contract. 6 figures. Remote work. Full control over security infrastructure. I said yes. Not out of revenge. Not out of pride. But because it was the first time someone had seen what I could do and said it mattered. That same day, a notification popped up. Zach had posted a long, carefully worded statement online about stepping away for personal reasons and focusing on family. I knew better. He was trying to spin it. But I did not care. Let him spin. Let him fade. He called me later that night. I let it ring. Then again, 2 hours later. Finally, I picked up. He sounded small. I did everything you said, he mumbled. They're pissed, but no one's pressing charges. Alina's gone. I moved back in with Mom and Dad, just for now. I said nothing. He took a breath. Listen, I know I screwed up. Not just the business. You too. He paused, waiting for me to make it easier. I didn't. So he kept going. You saved us. I never thought you'd be the one who. He cut himself off. I finished the sentence for him. The one who mattered. He let that hang for a second. Then said, yeah. I nodded, even though he could not see it. Took you long enough. Then I hung up. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Because sometimes silence is the final word. And for once, I was not the one waiting to be heard. It has been 6 months. Zach never got his company back. Last I heard, he is working at some mid-level consulting firm, trying to rebuild his image. He still has that fake smile, but it does not land the way it used to. Not after the truth came out. Not after I was the one who held the line. My parents? Things are civil now. Not warm. Not close. But civil. They call sometimes. They ask how I am doing. They even say thank you when I answer their questions. That part still feels weird. Once, my mom said, "We didn't know you had it in you." And I just said, "I always did. You just never looked." She went quiet after that. I have a new place now. A small but sharp apartment downtown. Windows that catch the morning sun, and silence I chose. Clients keep coming. Word travels fast in tech, especially when you fix a multi-million-dollar disaster without a single headline hitting the news. I do not talk to Zach much. We keep it to birthdays. Maybe a text if someone is sick. But I know this. He sees me now. Not as a backup plan. Not as the safety net. As the one who held the damn net when everyone else was falling. And you know what? I used to think being overlooked made me weaker. That hiding in the shadows was just where I belonged. But the truth? The shadows taught me everything. How to listen. How to learn. How to survive without the spotlight. How to stay steady when the golden boy cracked under pressure. I was the one no one bet on. And I am the only one still standing. So if you are out there, quiet, underestimated, passed over, let them laugh. Let them forget. Because when everything comes crashing down, they will finally see what they missed all along. Sometimes, the one who never got the attention was the one holding all the strength.